everybody at TPUSA's America Fest. I'm really excited to have these guests on with us today. Many of you know Benjamin and I have a big heart for women and men, people who have been trafficked, people who were formerly in the sex industry, who were being abused and taken advantage of. And so we've got this organization, Skull Games, right?
Yes.
I said it right? So this is Samantha and Michele. They're here talking to us about what Skull Games does, how they can help people, and how they can maybe even help you, your law enforcement in your community. So Michele, why don't you start off a little bit telling us what Skull Games is and what it is that you guys do?
Sure.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Okay, so Skull Games is a vetted crowdsourcing event.
Okay.
So speak to the camera, she says. Speak to Benjamin.
I should have set them up ahead of time, you guys.
That's
I'm
okay.
terrible host.
So basically is 24/7, we identify, our intelligence department identifies victims of sex trafficking, openly sex trafficking on escort ads online. We want to put a true identity to the victim being sold, but then find out who's trafficking her, provide that information to our law enforcement partners to take action. Every quarter we host what's called Skull Games, and that is a volunteer crowdsourcing event of analysts and survivors to hunters that Samantha will talk to you about. And we target specific areas with our law enforcement partners to provide as much information on the victims being sold and who's selling them, and they can take action for that on a larger scale.
I love that. And one of the things that people always get worried about in these organizations is, well, then the women or the young men or whoever is being trafficked is then going to go to jail or be hurt.
I'm going to let Sam speak to that.
Yeah, but that's not what happens, right?
So we want to be very sensitive when we're addressing that, because there is a misconception that, okay, we need to not arrest any of the victims. But the reality is, if we pick up a gal, if law enforcement picks up a gal, she has nowhere to go other than back to her trafficker.
Oh, gosh.
Let's think about it. Is it such a bad thing to maybe tie her up in a sting or tie her up, with the arrest
And to get her away.
To give her time to get away. So we like to encourage local law enforcement to partner with local survivors that have been vetted, that have been healthy in their aftercare process, that have processed their trauma, to come alongside of them and basically be survivor advocates, to then take over in that arrest, right, and offer resources and services. She still goes through the process. We can get her the help that she needs, but she's away from her trafficker, and then we can talk about maybe clearing up that arrest off her record later on.
Well, and it's almost like you have to create a division in there, right?
Yes,
like you
yes.
have to get them away from the people to be able to. So while some places like where we're from, Burlington, Vermont, decriminalized sex work, okay? Didn't legalize it, decriminalized it. And they say, oh, it's because, the dignity of the worker and this and that. And what law enforcement said was, no, So I love that you just kind of dispelled this idea that being arrested is actually a bad thing. That's actually care.
Yeah, it can be. As long as law enforcement has the proper channels put into place, that's the thing, working together as a community, which a lot of local law enforcement want to work together in that type of collaboration to provide that for these victims.
And now you don't just do the law enforcement piece, right? You guys actually have a sister organization or a partner, or is it the same organization?
Yes.
Okay, so the same organization. You also help people who have been trafficked, who are in the sex work industry or whatever. You help them when you talk about emotionally being helpful and stuff like that. So what does that program look like?
So with All Things Possible Ministries, we provide aftercare for those that have been sexually exploited, trafficked, and survivors of childhood sexual trauma. And so we offer different resources, services, programs that are long-term, not just for the victim, but for their families as a whole.
Yeah.
Because the aftercare process is the most important process to provide them with long-term success
Yes.
for them to stay out of the industry.
Well, because I imagine, a lot of times my understanding at least is folks in sex work, people who are trafficked, there's a huge correlation between addiction, the sex work. Many of them were victimized when they were children,
Yes,
perhaps.
that's correct.
And so there's this. How do we get to the root of why people were either vulnerable to be getting trafficked in the first place? Why did they think that this was the way to be? You have to get to the root of that stuff, or you don't actually help them recover and survive.
Exactly.
Right.
And that is a very important part. And I think a lot of times people like to focus on the kicking down of a door, and
The sexy part.
and grabbing them out. Yeah. Oh yeah. Nobody wants to do my job. Nobody wants to get in the muck and the mire, guys. So, and it stinks, I've been out of the sex industry now for 20 years. I still need services, resources, support, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually.
Yes.
And so it's really important to be invested for the long haul with them. Because if not, that just makes them vulnerable again to go back into the sex industry.
Well, and this is one of the things, I celebrated 13 years in recovery this year.
Oh, awesome.
And thank you. And but it is the process, right? So you get into the 12-step recovery program. Well, I have to discover what it is that had me there in the first place. Then I have to get through the trauma that I caused to myself by acting stupid under, the influence. And then so it's like the sexy part, right, is the door kicking down, but the hard part is the putting the human being back together.
Right. Sure.
And I think that's what a lot of times people don't understand, the human aspect of trafficking and sex work. Before we got started talking, I, as somebody who thinks I know what the heck is going on around here, didn't think about the fact that not all trafficking victims are being dragged across our borders. They're not necessarily being kidnapped down the street. They're being groomed by their boyfriends or online.
Yeah.
So say a little bit more about that. Like, what do you see as the difference between, or like the volume of one versus the other?
The reality is the people being sold for sex trafficking here are your neighbors. Is the person in your class, at your church, and they're being groomed online. And a lot of these kids and the traffickers are very tech savvy, and they're starting to groom that 13, 14, 15 years old, and they pose as the boyfriend. Right? And they separate them slowly and surely from their family.
Your parents just don't understand.
And it's not just the kids who are from broken homes, and it's not just the kids who have are unprotected and neglected. It's actually there's people out there targeting two-parent homes from Christian families.
Yes.
It's a sign of
Really?
right. Yes. How much street cred? How much street cred do you have? No, we are 100% serious.
Oh my God, that is
They are
so
very, very vulnerable.
Well, and if that is not, gosh, I don't know. Can I say this? You guys have a religious piece. Like, if that is not evidence
Of evil?
the fight between good and evil.
Yes, no, 100%.
I mean, that is
pure
literally,
evil.
if they're saying we want to go
Yes.
get Christian people, that just sounds like the enemy talking right
But
there.
understand, there's more shame in it for these young girls, these young boys. How do you
so
go
it's
to your...
easier to get them to be quiet, I bet.
How much shame is it
Oh my
in your
gosh,
church?
you guys. Huh? Catalyst? Talk about Catalyst? Oh, okay. I'm getting directed by my husband.
Oh, yeah.
Why am I talking in the microphone to tell them? That's the question.
You're a good wife receiving that direction, because he was dropping some nuggets of wisdom there. So lead away, kind sir.
So one of the things I love that you're talking about young people.
Yeah.
I feel like right now young people are at the most vulnerable that they've ever been.
Yeah.
When we hear the word groomer,
Yeah.
right, that's a big word, that's a big buzzword these days. And people try to argue against it, that the way our culture is shifting is not grooming the children. And I think to myself, when I hear teachers telling their students things like, well, don't talk to your parents about it because they wouldn't understand. I'm like, that's literally the thing that abusers say to get people to manipulate the people they abuse. And so I'm just saying, if the shoe fits, I'm just saying.
We're on board. We're on board.
So would you share, I would love for you to just share maybe a couple words. This is very selfish of me, but especially to Vermonters. So Burlington decriminalized sex work, and the state of Vermont, our state legislators want to do the same thing at the state level. I would love to hear both of you kind of share your thoughts about that and maybe encourage Vermonters how they can fight back against it.
I'm going to let you speak to that, and I'm going to change the equation. Okay. So basically, one of the biggest things people can do is we have two things. Free on our website, we have a Protect Your Family course for families to talk about this issue and how to keep your kids safe. You can take that free. We'll give you the QR code.
Awesome.
You can have that.
Excellent.
The other thing we have is it's called Change the Equation. So this is basically moving the age of majority from 18 to 21. So predators online are meeting these kids at 13, 14, 15 and having to hold on to them till they're almost 18 when they can legally turn them out for sex. You change that to 21, you've changed the game. Completely in our favor.
Isn't that interesting?
If you're on a if you have political stature, pull in any way, we've got documentation for you.
Okay.
As far
Awesome.
as decriminalization.
Yes, as a sex industry survivor myself, I'm going to say something that, as I said earlier, that is not a popular opinion.
Okay.
But the full decriminalization of sex work is going to be severely horrendous for all of those people that are fighting
put it mildly.
against, for those of us that are fighting against this. I mean, it's going to make our job way harder. It's going to make everybody's job harder as a parent. And so we really need to reevaluate how we want this structured. Yes, we want the gals that are being victimized to be receiving resources, services, and programs. However, we can't just eliminate all consequence. It is imperative that we get off of this narrative because it's going to send us straight down into the pit of hell that we're going to be physically living in if we keep going in this trajectory.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. Well, and I want to make sure we get you guys hooked up with a partner organization we work with called Catalyst Collective. They have a program called the Purpose Project. It's something I did in my mid-30s. It's geared towards young people, but obviously I did it in my mid-30s. But it's helping people identify their unique gifts and talents and use them towards what they're passionate about, which is so basically helping them find and move towards their purpose. I think that would be really useful for your organization to help those girls and guys, because we forget it's not just girls, right? To help these survivors get back on their feet and find some direction. I would love that. So we're going to make sure to get you guys connected to Joe, and because you would be a great mentor for that too. You'd totally be able to.
Thank you.
I don't know why I'm talking to them and whispering like I'm not on camera right now, but
we don't want anybody to know what we're planning. We're plotting and scheming over here. Don't mind us.
So tell everybody the websites, or what best websites to find you guys and get involved, and your social medias, how to connect with you.
So the website is victormarks.com, and you'll look for the Samantha Weekends and Skull Games.
Okay.
That's
all right. Awesome. And that's on all the socials too? All right. Perfect. All right. Thank you, ladies.
One question.
Yeah.
What is it that you think is making these young teenagers, why are they so susceptible?
Oh, good
Their
question.
parents are not telling them that this is okay. What is causing?
Well, here's the thing. Puberty. It's a natural.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Oh, yeah, but I just got back. Okay, I did want to make sure I was leading in the right direction, first of all.
Oh, okay. No, you're good.
Again, puberty is a natural time of sexual, you're going to make me do this, of that time of being curious about sex, about gender identity.
Okay.
This is the time they're at their most weakest and vulnerable. Why are we targeting that area? Because they are vulnerable and weak, and they're naturally curious. This is not nature at itself.
So basically what's happening is this is already a vulnerable time for them, right? And now on top of that, we're heaping all this weirdo gender confusion stuff, and then we're adding the sexualization on top of it. It's in everything that we do, and then we're shocked by the outcome.
Well, that mixed with, that's why we like to ensure to tell folks that it does affect everybody. This is a non-discriminatory crime that happens against our children. So it's not just the foster care kids that slipped through the cracks. It's not just the girl that was raised with, generations of prostitutes in their homes, It's not the kids that are being thrown away and neglected. It's also the kids in suburbia.
Yeah.
There's mom and dad climbing the corporate ladder, working 10, 12-hour days. The children are at home unattended, and then somebody slides into their DM. Oh my gosh, you're so pretty, you're so good. Well, what happens? I'm 13 years old. I'm not getting any attention. Mom and dad love me very much. I live in a nice big fancy home in a guard-gated community.
Yep.
It's great, right?
Yes.
But I'm susceptible because I have a need.
I have any
Pimps look for a need. It doesn't matter where you fall socioeconomically.
Well, and
they will find the need.
This is why I'm giving an absolutely shameless plug for Catalyst. This is why we need organizations like you guys. It's why we need Catalyst to help young people find their purpose, not let their identity be shaped by the school, by media, and by these groomers.
Yeah.
So we got to do something.
I agree.
All right. Thank you, ladies. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
I appreciate
so
it.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lord Benjamin.
Thank you.